give them the full title, foreign exchange reserves are extremely important national savings on the balance sheet of a country. They're especially important for emerging market countries. They are usually denominated in what we call hard currency, the reserve currencies of the world, the vast majority in US dollars, but also euro, sterling, and yen. You don't see much talk of FX reserves in the UK or in the US because these countries can print their own dollars, pounds, etc. But the emerging market countries need foreign exchange reserves. They need them as an insurance policy against currency moves, against capital flows, and they're an extremely important contributor to the credit rating that is assigned to an emerging market country. They really do count. Why should we care? They are a very big number. The emerging market countries of the world have around $12 trillion in foreign exchange reserves. When these reserves are moved, markets move. And when central banks start to do different things with their foreign exchange reserves, everybody will notice. Earlier this year, there were 2 surveys published on what central banks were most worried about when it came to managing their foreign exchange reserves. Independent surveys covering a vast swathe of the central banking community. In both surveys, the number one concern going forward was the impact of geopolitical risks. Now, of course, the geopolitical situation has changed somewhat in the last 2 or 3 years. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, ongoing problems in the Middle East, and the deterioration in the relationship between China and the US are big things and new things, and it shouldn't really surprise us that geopolitical concerns have gone up the concern register, but they are now number one. So we have this survey data. This gave me the idea that I should focus on these surveys and try and identify how things might be changing for FX reserves managers. In a regular situation, all FX reserve managers are basically affected by the same things: movement in the dollar, concern about what Fed policy might be going forward, etc. In terms of geopolitical risks, each country has its own individual playbook. Each country has its own relationship with China and the US. And across the spectrum, everybody has a slightly different perspective or a different seat at which they are positioned. But one thing is similar for all these central banks. One thing they all would wish for in a climate of greater uncertainty is to have more foreign exchange reserves. A bigger pile is better going forward to hedge against possible risks in the future. Self-insurance is extremely important for emerging market countries. To give you one example, the Asian countries in the 1990s had to seek help during a currency crisis from the IMF. The IMF came with very stringent and some would say harsh bailout conditions. The countries in Asia that didn't need help from the IMF didn't need help because they had very large piles of foreign exchange reserves. The lesson was learned then. Having more is better than having less. Having your own insurance policy is better than having to rely on other countries. The implications for fixed income are fairly straightforward. For the period approximately 2010 to 2022, for that 12-year period, interest rates were very, very low. And the story in terms of FX reserves management was about diversification out of fixed income into new asset classes. As interest rates have been raised, as the Fed has hiked policy 5-year interest rates have gone from around about 0 to around about 4% in terms of yield. Interest rates are back. They're back in fashion. For foreign exchange reserves managers, this means going back to what they did before, concentrating on core fixed income in terms of managing their foreign exchange reserves. The ONFIF survey that I referred to at the start makes the point that traditional asset classes, core fixed income, and core currencies, dollars and euro, will be the primary focus for central banks going forward. New reserves, incoming flows will be added to existing positions in core fixed income.